segment, Aiden. How you feel about that?
I don't want
I'm going to show them some things that actually relate to our class. I'm going to switch our little broadcast view here.
Adriana wants me to teach every lesson.
Well, I don't know that that can happen, but I want to talk a little bit about something that Adriana might be able to make happen eventually in her own classroom. It's something I wrote about on my blog today, and I'm going to share this link with you. But we're going to talk a little bit about building an anticipation guide for your Google Classroom, because everyone's inside right now, everyone's online. We're trying to figure out how do we adapt to the changing digital environment that we've basically just been forced into. Oh, that's real loud. Give it a little down.
I don't know how. Okay, that I think.
Yep, you got it. So here's some practical solutions. Now, this is certainly important for those of you that are in EDU 218, because you're going to be developing Google Classroom as one of your final assignments, as in fact as part of your final assignment for that class. And this is something that you might be able to take advantage of and incorporate into your own classroom. So I'm going to show you an example here. Kids in EDU 360, practicing teachers, student teachers, preclinical, anyone can really use this because it takes a research-based strategy, what we know works when we're trying to have kids teach, and it takes it from a paper pencil form and puts it into a digital format so that we can facilitate that same kind of learning online. I wrote a lengthy post about it today, but essentially what I did was decide what it was I wanted my students to learn about, and I wanted to keep it in the COVID-19 stream that we've been working with and that we have in our Week 10 D2L content. That is an important topic. Had someone I saw on Twitter today tweeted that said if he was still a high school biology teacher, he would have kids become experts in virus and virusology or whatever it is. What's the word that means that you study viruses? I don't know. Abby Arnold, please look that up for me. Tweet that out.
Search up virusism.
Yeah, when you're an expert in viruses. But this is what kids can be focused on. So the content in D2L deals with that. And I picked an article that I found on Newsela. Now, Newsela is a great site. We've talked about it in some of my classes before. Others, it might be new to you. You can join for free. It's got a lot of articles about expository text. The thing I love so much about this particular website is when you find an article, it has a Lexile level over here. And kids can adjust on their own the Lexile level that they might need to read at. So we can see at the highest level here is a 1250 Lexile, the lowest is 550. And this will keep the same content and meaning of the article, but adjust the reading level so that kids at different levels can pick one that's easy for them.
We have an answer. We have an answer to what study of viruses is. It's called virology.
Virology.
That should be the name of our rap album.
Virology? Yeah, it sounds like a bad 80s R&B group for some reason.
Probably is.
Virology.
Honestly, it's probably the name of a SoundCloud rapper that has long hair and is pretending to be depressed.
Really?
Probably.
Does he look like Isaac? Isaac, when's your SoundCloud album coming out? Fairly shortly. I can't wait.
Go subscribe to Danny and Ike for hunting videos.
Let's get back to Newsela for a second. We digress in this show quite a bit. I told you about the merits of Newsela. So I found an article that's related to the topic that I want kids to teach, or I want kids to learn more about. Here's what the article looks like. It's got different headings and sections. You should be familiar with that. One thing that we know kids need is that they need some scaffolding to help them comprehend. So one of the things that we recommend you do is that you do activities before kids read, when they're reading, and after they're reading. And if you've been in my class for long enough, you've probably heard me say use a BDA strategy, before, during, or after. Every time kids read, you don't use each of those strategies, but you pick and choose and you diversify across the length of your time that you're teaching these kids to make sure that every time they're doing something before, during, and after. You tell kids every time you read, you should do something either before, during, or after. And you help them begin to understand that they should be doing something that sets them up for success. The strategy I chose was the anticipation guide. So I created an anticipation guide using Google Docs. based on that article. I've put a hyperlink to where the Newsela article is, so kids can click on that article and go straight to that. And you can see it pop up there. I've included an area where I'm going to want them to insert their name. I've put clear directions here. One of the things that I want to really stress to you is that when I'm designing graphic organizers like this using Google Docs or using Word or whatever you might be using, I use tables a lot. Tables help structure that learning activity. They help provide clear steps for students, and they're a really valuable tool. So this is a simple table. I think I made it starting out like a 4x4 table, and then I added rows, deleted rows, and merged rows, all of that kind of stuff as I created it. So the directions here says before you read the article, complete the before reading column of the anticipation guide. Use the left click, right click method to change the checkbox. And this is a method that I found online. Turns out a guy that I know named Eric Kurtz from Stark County Educational Service Center had created a quick tutorial about how to create checkboxes in a Google Doc. And I have it linked here. So this little left click, right click link goes to that particular resource. And this is what it looks like. It was a blog post or a document that he created for teachers. So it goes step by step on how you create the checklists, how they mark off the checklist, and it has this little animated video that shows them changing. Essentially, the left click, right click has the students mouse over the checkboxes that you've created, click one time on the left click side, it highlights all the bullets, pick the bullet that you want and click on it left again to isolate it, and then you use a right click to change the different character. And if I want to choose not true on this anticipation guide statement, then I would click the check. So now when I'm asking students to complete this work, they're using that method to show me what they know before they read. They read each of these statements that I've pulled actually from the article, and they decide if they're true or not true. Then they go jump into the article, they read that article, they think about it, they maybe take notes, they do other things that good readers do, and when they're finished reading it, they come back, and this actually allows some summative type assessment or some comprehension assessment where they fill in the after reading column by citing evidence that they found in the article that either supports or contradicts the predictions. I think an important thing for you to know is that kids should be allowed to not have to be right all the time. So if their before reading prediction was wrong, if they can cite evidence from the text that helps them clarify why they were wrong and then know that they were wrong and change their mind or help change their perspective, that's exactly what we want them to be doing there. We want to give them that opportunity to find out if it's true or not true.
My teachers don't do that.
Really?
No. Whenever I get the before thing wrong, because sometimes in honors and they think that like I'm really smart or whatever, they say, well, you should infer this correctly because your inferring skills should be growing as the year progresses. And so when we read The Giver, and I thought that Gabe was going to be like an 8-year-old and like Jonas's friend or something, they got really mad at me.
Why don't you just admit that you're just really not that smart? You shouldn't be in honors English. Language arts. Maybe. I don't know. Now you got me lost track. Let's see where we're at on this. So I've showed you what the activity is. Oh, the next step in this is after I've created this graphic organizer is now to take it one step further and put it into my Google Classroom. So I want to create it as an assignment. And if I go into my Google Classroom, which is set up here, you can see that I've created an assignment. I called it the Games We Play because I like to give it an exciting title that might draw students in. So it's called Games We Play, and when I click on that and drill down into it, I can see that I've assigned work to students and my students are showing up in my classroom. I can tab over and see the instructions. So again, in my assignment, it tells when it's due at the top, how many points it's worth over on the side.
Your children are confused.
Some instruction. Why?
They said they don't know if it's for EDU 218 or EDU 360.
This is for any of you, EDU 218 or EDU 360. You could take and replicate this strategy and use it in a lesson. You could use it EDU 218 in your Google Classroom assignment that's going to be coming up. You could use it during student teaching. It's not a requirement for you to do for this class right now. I'm simply sharing with you a strategy that would help enhance instruction online.
What if you merged your classes?
So remember the first episode I told you I'm going to ask him questions, he's going to tell me things, and then I'm going to share a lot of knowledge that you may not want to hear. This is where we're at.
Yep.
So I would love to see you use it because it's a really solid strategy, guys. Like, I thought about it a long time and I put a lot of work into it, but you don't have to do it as an assignment. You don't have to get points to make it meaningful, to learn something, right? So there's no pressure. Take and do what you want with this strategy. Pass it along to others. I think it's a good one. I put it right into Google Classroom and my kids can create it, but there's no assignment or homework for this particular class, EDU 360 or EDU 218, that you have to do with this particular strategy. I'm just sharing some knowledge with you tonight live from the basement. Where'd my sidekick go?
Where's the boy wonder?
You're coming back? Well, maybe one of the Muppets will come over.
Yeah, I doubt that.
No! Anyways, that's what it looks like. So I want to talk a little bit, though, about how did you do this? If I do want to do this, what do I need to do? All right, so the first thing you need to do is start by finding some text. What do you want your kids to read? So I found an example that I thought I might use because you know how much I love golf. I'm going to teach kids in an online environment the proper golf stance and the 5 steps that they need to take to make that stance possible and to do it well. I found this article online. I could link this in my classroom, put it in D2L. We'd like kids to read it. We really want them to comprehend so we know that they understand what this article is saying. After I find that, one thing that I might consider doing is checking and seeing what's the readability of this text like? Is it too hard for the age of student that I'm working with? Is it too easy? So I'm going to copy all of this text at the beginning, and I'm going to highlight it, copy, and paste. I'm going to take it into what I have, this little Lexile Organizer, and I've got all this stuff linked on a sheet that I'm going to provide to you guys after the stream, so you don't have to worry about finding all this stuff. All the links are collected. I put it together on like the weekly agenda I always give you guys. But this readability meter is going to take the text, it's going to analyze it, and it's going to tell us about what level we're at. So when I paste it in there, I can go ahead and do this, and then click Analyze. And when I'm done, it tells me that this text is in the Lexile level of 1010 to 1200. And if you remember back to the NewsELA, it went back into that level. It was 1020, here's 1250. So we have a similar level of text. There's some indicators about harder sentence length, word frequency is easier, some vocabulary that's included. This is a free tool from Lexile.com. You just sign up for a free account and you're able to use it. Any text that you would copy and paste from the internet, you could put in here and find out approximately what Lexile level it is. This is helpful because it helps you differentiate, right? You might find multiple texts you put through here. You want to find one at 500, one at 800, one at 1,000, or whatever. So a tool like this helps you determine, am I meeting the needs of all my diverse learners? Not something that you necessarily have to do with books because a lot of times those are already leveled, but when you're teaching in the online environment, having a sound understanding of what's the Lexile level of the resource that you're using is a really, really good practice to adopt. Once I have that and I've determined it's all right to use, that's where we go to the design of the graphic organizer, right? One thing that you could do is you could come to this particular graphic organizer, one that you already have before. You can do File, make a copy, which is somewhere, Edit, File, make a copy's at the top. And you can make a copy in your drive and then go in and edit it. If you wanted to start from scratch, you could go ahead and just create a new document. Go into your Google Docs, pull it up and start from scratch. When I was designing that, I always like to go into my documents and I adjust the page setup. I usually make the margins tinier than they are by default. Sometimes I go in actually and I like to turn things to be landscape, so it's longer. I have a wider area to work with, but it's shorter height-wise. I'll change these margins usually to 0.5. and just get everything set up. Once I'm done with that, like I said, I start with tables. So I told you with that one, I started with just an easy 4x4 table. And when I get that into my Google Doc, if I only want this to be one line, I highlight all of those cells and I go to merge cells. And now I have a single, whatever you call that, row or column in here. And I can ask students to do something like put their name. Sometimes I just want to maybe merge just two of them. Oops, that was bad news. Sometimes I'll just merge two cells. In the case of the graphic organizer you saw, that was the before and after reading section. So I still keep these, and if I need to, I just go in and I insert a row below. And I keep building this table out as I need more space in that table for the graphic organizer that I'm constructing. Thank you.
No problem, sir.
No, yeah. Are there questions? I'm going to
yes.
I'm going to the Gusher Pack 2.
Number 2. So while you wait, I will read some things from the chat while you finish your bag of gushers.
Thanks.
No problem, sir. Please ask questions for your teacher, aka my dad, or me, because I'll take questions, or Isaac, if you're open to questions.
Wait, are you telling me there are no questions?
No. Well, I just fell off my chair, and I think I just skinned my elbow, so.
Okay. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Can we meet the boss? Who is the boss?
The boss? Who is the boss?
Me, obviously.
No.
Hi, my name's Aiden.
You are not the boss.
I want to meet the boss. Okay. Your mom.
The boss isn't available. She's working.
Isaac, somebody asked, do you miss lacrosse?
Yes, I do miss lacrosse.
He said yes. A student has a question. How would the anticipation guide work if you're teaching a foreign language, and how would you do that?
Ooh, I would suggest that you would have to probably use a keyboard that has the characters of that foreign language, and you would have to find text. So I'm not an expert in the foreign language area, but I know that you can find web pages that are written in whatever the foreign language might be. And it would probably be a similar type of scenario where you'd expect the students to possibly be reading something in the foreign language text and then responding to your questions. So it'd be very similar to this, but everything would be here would be in the foreign language. If you wanted to make it super simple, then what you could do is instead of asking them questions related to what they're reading, you can make it something more simple like just vocabulary words. So let's say you're working on students learning how to say the colors in a different language. Maybe in the before reading section you'd have the word, vocabulary word in the foreign language, and then you'd ask them instead of true or not true, do you know this word or do you not know this word? And then on the other side, in the after reading, write the definition in that language or something like that. It could be modified in a couple different ways to fit foreign languages.
Somebody else just asked, Riley Snyder, how long is this going to last? I know the answer to this question.
Do you?
Yes, I do, because I paid attention to the last one.
How long did it last?
How long will this thing last? How long will online teaching last?
Online teaching
for the rest of the semester.
Right, online teaching in both EDU 218 and EDU 360 will be entirely online for the rest of the semester in just these classes. The University of Mount Union has still said that they are going to evaluate the situation as it moves forward, and that everyone will be online until the 5th of April.
I interpreted the question wrong?
She wanted to know how long this stream was going to last?
I think so.
No one ever knows.
It goes on for however long it wants to be.
Right.
If I wanted to end the stream off by singing I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys, I would.
You
but
would.
I can't.
You're right. I want to talk a little bit about back to the anticipation guide though. Those were good questions about what you might do with the anticipation guide, but one thing that I suggest always is contrast. So if you looked at mine, you saw that I used different colors. When you right click in one of the table areas and click on table properties, you can change that color of the background cell. So I use that a lot of times to make contrast for learners. When you type text in there, change the text obviously then to white, so something that shows up really easily. All right, make it bold. That calls students' attention to the work. So once you've created your graphic organizer, or GO, for lack of a better term, what you're going to do then is move that into your Google Classroom, and you'll create an assignment in your Google Classroom. You'll incorporate that graphic organizer, so we do that in the Classroom tab, and then we create a new assignment, as you can see, like I did for COVID-19. So it's a relatively simple process. When your students look at it, I have the student view down here. I was going to show you guys in another browser. This is the view of what students see. You can see that there's an assignment. I see the assignments, and in the My Work section of the student view, it shows that the work's been assigned. I can either mark as done, or I can add or create a document. In something like this with the anticipation guide, what you want students to do is open up that anticipation guide in their own Google Apps account, and then it will be in view only. Hopefully you set it at view only, and then they'll do file, make a copy. They'll make that copy and save it to their own drive, and then they're able to complete it and submit it to you. So the student view allows them to see the article we want them to read, to find the work we would like them to complete. They'll make a copy of it and then add or create. Now, these are things that you're going to have to work with students on, and hopefully you've been working with them from the beginning of the year to this point. But those are steps that you might have to create screencasts for, or provide additional training for students. So that is the tips that I have today for teaching online. I don't have any samples.
You're on the wrong sample one.